Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Tahira, working as assistant professor in the Department of Pediatrics Medicine, Amiruddin Medical College, Lahore. And today's topic of discussion is epilepsy. So how do we define epilepsy? What is epilepsy? Epilepsy is basically occurrence of two or more unprovoked seizures at least 24 hours apart. Or we can say epilepsy is basically the recurrent unprovoked seizures. And what is a seizure? Seizure is basically defined as a paroxysmal disturbance of the brain function that is disturbed, and this disturbance manifests in the form of impaired consciousness, may manifest as abnormal motor activity, or that we notice in the form of fits, or maybe behavior abnormalities. There may be some sensory disturbances or some autonomic dysfunction. So a seizure is defined as paroxysmal disturbance of the brain function that may manifest in any of these forms: impaired consciousness, motor disturbance, sensory disturbance, or the autonomic dysfunction. Regarding incidence, seizures, they occur in about 3 to 5% of the children, but in almost majority of the children the seizures never recur. There are 30% chances of having a second seizure in a child, and incidence of epilepsy is 0.5 to 1%. And as we said, epilepsy is the recurrent unprovoked seizures, but the child who develop first seizures, they might never have a second seizure. So regarding etiology of the epilepsy, what are the causes that lead to epilepsy? The specific etiology in most of the cases is unknown, or we can say it is idiopathic in 70% of the cases. And the remaining cases in which the etiology is found, the most cases are due to some congenital anomalies, the anomalies of the brain, that are the brain malformations, or there may be some birth trauma during delivery or labor leading to the hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, or some brain trauma later on. Then there may be some infections may be intrauterine, like torch infections, or later on pyomeningitis, tuberculous meningitis, or viral meningitis. Any of these may lead to the epilepsy later on. Vascular causes involving thromboembolism or infarction, the neoplasm of the brain, or metastasis from some other neoplasm, and the neurocutaneous disorders like tuberous sclerosis or neurofibromatosis. Regarding classification, the seizures are classified into partial and generalized. Partial seizures are when only a portion of the one hemisphere of the brain is involved, and generalized when both hemispheres are involved. And partial are further classified into simple partial and complex partial, depending upon the level of the consciousness. So regarding partial seizures, these are usually simple, complex, and partial seizures with the secondary generalization. In simple partial seizures, the conscious level is intact. In complex partial seizures, the conscious level is deranged. There is altered level of consciousness. In case of partial seizures with secondary generalization, seizures are partial to start with, and later on these are generalized and also labeled as Jacksonian epilepsy. So partial seizure, what is a partial seizure? It is defined as a seizure in which the clinical and EEG changes both suggest the involvement of a single hemisphere of the brain. Only a part of the cerebral hemisphere that is involved, and the clinical manifestations depend upon the area involved. Clinical manifestations may be motor in the form of the fits, sudden sensory abnormalities, odd sensations, or some autonomic disturbance like sudden sweating, sudden pallor, So these may be the manifestations of the partial seizures. And partial are further divided into simple partial and the complex partial. Regarding simple partial seizures, patient is conscious and may interact with the surroundings. Patient is well aware of his condition, but the interaction usually depends upon the patient. It varies, as the patient may not interact due to the anxiety of the fits, but patient is well aware during these fits. Conscious level is intact. In complex partial seizures, there is loss of consciousness or impaired level of the consciousness. The area involved in complex seizures is one part of the brain, but initially it starts with the one portion of the brain, but then this abnormal electrical activity spreads to cause impairment in the conscious level, but it's not enough to evoke a generalized tonic-clonic seizure. Aura may be there. Aura is the abnormal feeling that the child may have before the fit starts. Staring may be there, and also there is automatism. What is automatism? In automatism, the child has uncontrolled, semi-purposeful, coordinated involuntary movements. So coordinated involuntary semi-purposeful movements. Consciousness is usually impaired. Patient does not recall this activity. It may be in the form of lip smacking, chewing, uttering some abnormal sounds, picking things repeatedly, tapping, walking abnormally, straight or in the circles. In generalized seizure, there is involvement of both the hemispheres. The abnormal electrical activity involves both the cerebral hemispheres, and the generalized seizures are classified into tonic seizures, clonic seizures, maybe tonic-clonic, that is grand mal epilepsy, the most common type, then atonic seizures, myoclonic seizures, and absence seizures, that is petit mal epilepsy. Tonic-clonic seizures or the grand mal epilepsy, it is the most common type of fits in the children. It has three phases. First is the tonic phase, second clonic phase, and third is the postictal phase. In tonic phase, suddenly there is generalized increase in the body tone. Body becomes rigid, muscle stiffen, and child loses consciousness, may fall on ground during this stage. There is uprolling of the eyeballs, and there may be a loud cry as the child forcefully expires air against the closed glottis. This stage lasts for few seconds, and it is followed by the clonic phase. In clonic phase, there are rhythmic contractions of the muscles, back and forth movements of the muscle. There may be tongue bite, urinary or fecal incontinence associated with these seizures, and this clonic phase usually lasts for few minutes. This is followed by the postictal state. In postictal state, child is exhausted and sleeps for few hours. There may be transient paralysis, that is known as Todd's paralysis. So tonic-clonic phase has three stages: tonic, sudden increase in the body tone; clonic phase, having tonic-clonic jerks; and the postictal phase, in which the sleeps. EEG changes in tonic-clonic fits include multiple high voltage spikes bilaterally during the fits, and between the seizures there are random. After generalized tonic-clonic seizures, absence seizures is the most common type of fits in the children. It usually starts after the age of 5 years. The peak age is 6 to 7 years. The onset before 3 years is very rare, and frequency is higher in girls than in the boys. What happens in absent seizures is suddenly the child stops the activity and starts staring. There is eye fluttering movement and the child becomes unresponsive. It is infrequently associated with the automatism, clonic jerks, or the loss of postural tone. In typical absent seizures, there is no jerks, but in atypical absent seizures, myoclonic jerks may be associated, and there may be loss of postural tone, like head drop may be there. Postictal state is not there in absent seizures. These episodes last for few seconds, usually less than 30 seconds, and then child resumes activity. These fits usually go unnoticed, but the frequency of these fits may be as high as 100 per day, and these multiple episodes may affect the school activities of the child. These fits can be provoked by hyperventilation, EEG in absent seizures shows generalized symmetric 3 Hz spikes and wave discharge. Imaging studies are normal. Treatment of these seizures is ethosuximide and valproic acid. These are the most effective drugs, and the response to treatment is 60 to 7%. Myoclonic epilepsy. In myoclonic epilepsy, there are brief contractions of a group of the muscles. Or you can say there are jerky contractions of the muscles. These are divided into benign myoclonus of the infancy, typical myoclonus, complex myoclonus, and juvenile myoclonics. In benign myoclonus of infancy, the myoclonic jerks start before infancy. In typical myoclonus, the common age is 2 years, and these children are normal at birth and development is normal. The prognosis of these fits is very good. Family history is usually there in typical myoclonus. In complex myoclonus, these children are usually mentally retarded, developmental delay is there, microcephaly may be associated, and the prognosis in this type of epilepsy is poor. There may be upper motor neuron signs or the extrapyramidal signs associated with the complex myoclonus epilepsy. Then juvenile myoclonic epilepsy or the Jans syndrome. In juvenile myoclonic epilepsy, usually it occurs in the young adolescents, 12 to 16 years of the age, and the symptoms are the frequent myoclonic checks at the morning. They usually drop things at the morning and may be associated with the early morning generalized tonic-clonic seizures. Juvenile myoclonus may also have absent seizures. These are called juvenile absent seizures. In juvenile myoclonic epilepsy, the drug of choice is valproate, and these respond very well to the valproate, but it is usually given for lifelong. There are different syndromes that are associated with the epilepsy. These are epileptic syndromes. Some are associated with a specific type of seizures, focal seizures, and some are associated with a generalized seizures. Few of these are like infantile spasm and the Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. in these syndromes, these are specific, related to specific age, and some of the syndromes have some genetic predisposition. In infantile spasm usually occur between 2 to 12 months of age, and these consist of cluster of fits in a day. There are sudden flexion or extension of the arms. The flexion movement that involves sudden flexion of the head, bending of the knees, and flexion of the arms. And in extension there is sudden Moro-like responses. These seizures occur for few seconds, but the episodes may be multiple. Usually the infantile spasms, they are associated with some brain malformation, may be associated with the developmental abnormalities of the brain. There may be underlying cause like hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, or they may be cryptogenic. In cryptogenic infantile spasm, the prognosis is good. In cryptogenic spasm, there is no underlying cause associated with the seizures. In Lennox-Gastaut syndrome is characterized by mental retardation and interactable seizures of various types. In Lennox-Gastaut, there may be multiple types of seizures: myoclonic, tonic-clonic, absence seizures. Any type of seizures may be associated, and it usually occurs at between 2 to 7 years of age. The response to treatment in Lennox-Gastaut syndrome is poor. How to evaluate a child who presents with the seizures? In a child who presents with recurrent seizures or with the first episode of seizure, how to evaluate? If the child present with the seizures, first of all, age of onset of the seizures. At different type of epilepsies present at different age groups. Duration and frequency of the seizures. Then what are the precipitating factors? Like myoclonic fits may be precipitated by the photic stimulation. Absence seizures, they may be precipitated by the hyperventilation. Then onset of the seizures, was it focal to start or the generalized from the start? Then presence of auras. Usually the simple partial seizures are not associated with the auras, but complex partial and generalized tonic-clonic seizures, they may be associated with the auras. Postictal state is there in generalized seizures, may be complex partial seizures, but in absence seizures there is no postictal state. Developmental delay may be associated, like in complex myoclonus epilepsy, there may be developmental delay. Developmental delay may be associated in Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, so history of developmental delay is important. Then previous treatment, what the previous drugs is child taking and control is achieved with these drugs or not. Physical examination of the child includes head circumference, as there may be microcephaly associated with the hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, may be associated with other syndromes, or there may be macrocephaly due to congenital anomalies of the brain, or there may be some facial dysmorphism associated. So observe for the facial dysmorphism. Syndromes may be associated with the physical dysmorphism. Then complete neurological examination. If there is any focal neurological sign, there are any upper motor neuron signs, or abnormal CNS examination. Then developmental assessment, as many of the types of epilepsy may be associated with the developmental delay. Birthmarks are important in case of neurocutaneous disorders like tuberous sclerosis or the neurofibromatosis. There may be Kaplan spots or the Ashley fleas may be there. Fundoscopy may reveal if there is papilledema in case of infections, or if there is hematomas, retinal hematomas may be there in case of tuberous sclerosis. So, how to manage a child with epilepsy? A child who presents with epilepsy, the management includes 3 steps. First of all, if the child presents with fits, you have to stabilize the child. Next is the pharmacological management, that includes drugs that are required for the long-term management of the fits, and the education about the disease. So, stabilization of the child: if the child presents with acute onset of fits, then you have to stabilize the airway, check for breathing, circulation, monitor his cardiac activity, oxygen and pulse oximetry. Then IV access. Immediate labs that need to be sent includes blood glucose, basic metabolic panel, anticonvulsant drug level, toxicology profile, complete blood count with differentials and platelets. Starting with the pharmacological management of epilepsy. Treatment to be started with a single drug of choice for a clinical type of epilepsy. Then the drug of choice to start with a lower dose and then to increase gradually to control the fits, or if the signs of toxicity appear. If the seizures are not controlled, then with one drug, then we can add the second drug of choice, but then taper off the second drug gradually and withdraw it. Counseling of the parents regarding the disease. Disease is long-term, requires long-term treatment, as the compliance is the key to the treatment. Follow-up, periodic neurological evaluation and drug levels. If the signs of toxicity appear, reduce the drug or add the second drug. For most children, anticonvulsant medications, they can be weaned off after 2 years without seizures. So if the child remains seizure free for at least 2 years, then we can stop the anticonvulsants, but these are tapered gradually. Even after stopping the drug, some children may relapse. Drug of choice in different types of epileptic disorders include: for grand mal epilepsy, valproic acid is the first line of drug, followed by carbamazepine, phenobarbital and phenytoin. The most common side effect associated with the valproic acid is hepatotoxicity. So liver function should be monitored. In petit mal epilepsy or the absence seizures, ethosuximide is a drug of choice, followed by valproic acid. In focal epilepsy, carbamazepine and valproic acid. And carbamazepine may cause a bone marrow dysfunction, and it may cause thrombocytopenia, neutropenia, leukopenia. For myoclonic epilepsy, again the drug of choice is valproic acid, followed by clonazepam and ethosuximide. Both the parents and the patients, they should be counseled about the disease and its management. As I already mentioned, they must be properly counseled regarding the long-term nature of the disease and its management, as the compliance is key to the management. They should be compliant to the treatment, to the follow-up, and they should also be counseled regarding the activities of the child. The child should not be restricted but should be supervised in all the activities. He can go for cycling, but supervised. He can swim, but not unsupervised. He should not lock his doors from inside while in bathroom, or sleep should be adequate. There should be no emotional or psychological stress. All these factors may precipitate. What is status epilepticus? It is continuous seizure activity or the recurrent seizure activity without regaining of the conscious level, lasting for more than 5 minutes. Previously it was about 30 minutes, but this has been associated with the risk of brain damage, as the longer duration may lead to the brain damage. So the operational definition for the status epilepticus is now the 5 minutes duration, continuous seizure activity for 5 minutes, or recurrent seizures without regaining the consciousness lasting for more than 5 minutes. What is refractory status epilepticus? The status epilepticus that fails to respond to at least 2 of the anticonvulsant drugs, that is labeled as. So what are the risk factors that are responsible for status epilepticus in a child? Drug withdrawal, anticonvulsant drug, if it is not taken timely, the child may develop status epilepticus. And then infection or fever due to any reason. Then metabolic derangements may lead to status epilepticus. Congenital malformations and status epilepticus may be a presentation of the epilepsy, first presentation in a child with epilepsy, or trauma. All of these factors may precipitate the child to status epilepticus. Management of status epilepticus is very crucial, as if the fits are not controlled timely, it may lead to brain damage. And management includes 3 phases. First, initial stabilization of the child, then drug therapy, and then management of the post-ictal state. So initially, when the child presents with the status epilepticus in emergency, what should we do? Just maintain airway, check for breathing and circulation, give oxygen, do pulse oximetry and monitor temperature. Meanwhile, maintain IV line and immediately send the blood for the following, that is glucose, metabolic profile, anticonvulsant drug levels, toxicology profile, platelets, and then we will start treatment of the. If the fingerprick test indicates hypoglycemia, then give 10% X dose intravenously. And for the treatment of status, the drug of choice first line drugs is benzodiazepine. Diazepam is given 0.15 mg per kg IV over 1 to 2 minutes, and it may be repeated 3 times with interval of 5 to 10 minutes. If IV access cannot be achieved, then diazepam can be given by rectal route. Other benzodiazepines like midazolam or lorazepam, they can be given if available. So if the fits are not controlled with the diazepam, what should we do? Diazepam is given in 3 doses. It is repeated 3 times, and even then, if fits are not controlled, then move to the next drug, and the next drug is phenytoin. Phenytoin is given 20 mg per kg, and it is given IV slowly in infusion. First, 1/3 of the dose should be administered in 1 to 2 minutes, and the remaining dose can be given 1 mg per kg per minute. And the next, if the fits are not controlled with the phenytoin, then we can give phenobarbital or levetiracetam can be given. So if the patient does not respond to all of these medications, benzodiazepines are given, phenytoin is given, phenobarbital or levetiracetam, then we can give valproic acid intravenously. And if the patient still does not respond, then the next modality is general anesthesia. Patient is given general anesthesia and is placed on the ventilator. So in post-ictal state, maintenance drugs should be continued, like phenytoin can be given, phenobarbital can be given, levetiracetam can be given. If the child is a known case of epilepsy, the drug he is already taking should be continued. Lumbar puncture should be done if we suspect infection. Child is presenting first time with the status epilepticus, but it should be postponed till the child is vitally stable. But start IV antibiotics as soon as possible if we suspect infection. A history of trauma, raised intracranial pressure, any neurological signs, if there is unexplained loss of consciousness or suspicion of cerebral herniation, then CT scan should be done.